Hello, everyone. Today, we have an incredibly touching story about loyalty and hope. The story of Max, its German Shepherd who spent 4 long years sitting and waiting at an old gas station, unaware that his family thought he was lost forever. Max is not just a Dicken. He is a symbol of endless patience, unconditional love, and an unwavering wait. Max's story not only touches our hearts, but also sends a powerful message about loyalty and belief in the good things in life, despite the hardships we may face. We will witness Max's journey of recovery as he slowly finds the safety and love that his family had once given him. With the love of the Carter family, Max truly found the home he deserved. If you find this story heartwarming and meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more touching stories like this. Max the German Shepherd, with matted fur and a sad look in his eyes, lived a lonely life at an old gas station in a small town. For 4 long years, he remained there, patiently waiting. No one knew why, but Max never left. Trucks passed by and drivers hurried by, but Max just silently stared at the road as if waiting for someone to return. Every morning, the first rays of sunlight warmed the ground, but it was not enough to dispel the cold in Max's heart. The old gas station, with its outdated pumps and rusted walls, was the only place Max called home. Occasionally, a truck would stop, and the drivers would toss Max a piece of bread or a slice of meat, but Max never ate when anyone was around. He would only approach the food after the vehicles had driven away, always looking toward the road. The townspeople were used to seeing Max there sitting silently, not whining or bothering anyone. But no one truly understood what was going on in the dog's heart. Some thought Max was a stray dog, others thought he had once belonged to a family, and now he was just waiting for his owner to return. But no matter what, Max patiently waited day after day. Sarah, a waitress from the nearby diner, was the only one who truly cared for Max. Every morning before opening the diner, Sarah would drive by the gas station and leave some food for the dog. She didn't understand why Max sat and waited, but she felt something special in his patience. He's definitely waiting for someone, Sarah thought every time she saw him. One autumn morning, as Sarah drove by the gas station as usual, she saw a car parked nearby. A man stepped out of the car holding a camera. The man was Jake, an investigative journalist from the big city who had happened to pass through the town. Jake's gaze was immediately drawn to Max's incredible patience. Jake decided to stop and find out more about the story. He quickly realized that Max was not just a lost dog. Max's story was tied to a tragedy. Jake never expected Max had once been the dog of the Carter family, a small family living nearby. A car accident had taken away Max's loved ones, but despite the loss and the painful storm that took everything, Max still sat there patiently waiting, as if sensing that one day his family would return. Max's story, with its unmatched loyalty, moved the hearts of the entire town. Max was not just a dog, he was a symbol of persistence and hope. Max's story spread across newspapers and social media, catching the attention of pet lovers all across the United States. No one could forget the image of the dog patiently waiting for someone who would never return. Then one day, when everything seemed like a miracle, the Carter family, who had thought they had lost Max forever, realized that the dog was still alive. They came to the gas station, and Max, for the first time in 4 years, stood up and ran towards his family. That was the moment the world knew that sometimes loyalty and love can transcend time and space. Max not only returned home, but also brought hope, showing that loyalty and love are never in vain. Max was a mystery that no one could explain. Every morning, as the first rays of the new day began to pierce through the thin mist on the empty road, Max sat there under the shadow of the old gas station in the small town. His matted coat was covered in dirt, his eyes silently staring at the long road that stretched ahead, empty of traffic. The occasional cars passed, but Max never moved, never called attention to himself. People in the town noticed Max, but no one knew for sure why he was there. Some said Max was abandoned. The stories of the poor dog spread throughout the town, and many people tried to approach Max, offering him food, and some even tried to take him in. But Max always refused, never letting himself be taken, whether out of love or help from humans. Max just sat there silently waiting, without a single word of complaint, without a single whimper. There were many theories about Max. Some people thought the dog was lost. They said maybe Max had once belonged to a family, but for some reason he got lost and couldn't find his way back. These people looked at Max with pity, but they didn't understand why he kept waiting for so long. They thought that if someone took Max in, he would find happiness, but they didn't know that Max didn't want to go anywhere. Others thought Max was waiting for someone who had gone missing or perhaps had passed away, but Max couldn't let go of hope. Some believed Max had once been part of a family, and a tragedy had taken away those he loved. Although no one knew for sure, many people in the town sensed something deep in Max's eyes, a patience, an endless waiting that no one could explain. Max's story became a big mystery in the town. Every day people would still see him sitting there, but no one dared to ask too many questions because they were afraid of disturbing the peace Max had found. Some people had started returning to the gas station to continue feeding Max, but they still didn't understand why he remained there, not leaving. Even though everything around him had changed, some truck drivers would stop by and leave food for Max. They would look at the barge for a few moments before driving off, wondering if Max was waiting for someone who had gone away and never returned. Max showed no signs of anger or fear. Although his eyes were full of patience, they were also filled with sadness. No one knew who Max was waiting for, but his presence created a strange feeling, a feeling that there was an untold story, a story of loss, resilience, and a profound belief in the return of a loved one. And so Max became a part of this small town. No one dared to forget him, and the silence around Max made everyone think of him. Was Max waiting for someone he loved? Could one day Max leave the gas station and continue a new life? Or would Max's story remain a mystery, never to be answered? Sarah was a person with a big heart and always cared for those around her, whether human or animal. She worked at the small town diner, where hot plates of food filled with the aroma of bacon and fresh coffee always drew in the regulars every morning. But Sarah didn't just care about her work. She was the first to notice the patience in Max's eyes, the German Shepherd who quietly sat at the gas station every day. Every morning before starting her work, Sarah would drive her old car past the gas station. She never forgot to stop and leave some food for Max. She knew that the dog would never eat when someone was nearby. Max would only stare at her with his dark, patient eyes never moving. Sarah felt something strange in those eyes, as if Max was waiting for something bigger, something she couldn't quite understand immediately. Sarah had seen many animals wandering around this town, but Max was different. He wasn't a lost dog, and he wasn't just a dog waiting for food. There was something special, a strange patience in every wag of Max's tail when she drove by the gas station each time she saw him sitting there unmoving. Not barking, just silently watching the road like a close friend, waiting for someone. Sarah told the people in the town about Max, but no one could explain why the dog had been sitting there waiting for 4 long years. Stories about Max began to spread, but no one could come up with a reasonable answer. Some people said Max was just lost and couldn't find his owner. Others thought he was waiting for someone who had gone away, but no one knew for sure. And it was this mystery that made Max an inseparable part of the town. Sarah couldn't explain why Max was waiting, but she knew there was something special in that dog. Every time she looked into Max's eyes, she felt the extraordinary patience within him. The dog never rushed and never showed any fear or anxiety. Max just sat there waiting calmly, as if there was an invisible bond connecting him to someone out there, someone whom Max was sure would return. Although she couldn't explain it, Sarah knew that Max wasn't just an ordinary dog. He had something deeper, something more than just being lost or waiting for a short period. Max was waiting for something that no one understood, something that no one could explain. And this made Sarah feel both compassionate and respectful. Sarah shared Max's story with her friends at the diner, but none of them really understood. Some thought Max was looking for attention, that he just wanted to be loved and cared for. Others believed that Max was waiting for an owner who had gone away, someone Max loved and trusted would come back. But the strange thing was, no one really knew yet. There was an invisible pull that made everyone in the town pay attention to Max. On those cold mornings when the air was filled with the biting chill, Sarah couldn't help but look towards Max when she drove by the diner. The dog was still there, his eyes never leaving the road, never turning back. The trucks passed by, and Max remained not chasing, not barking, just staring into the distance. Sarah began to feel like she was understanding Max's patience, more a patience that wasn't from an animal, but from a friend, waiting for something only he knew. One day, when Sarah drove by the gas station and saw Max sitting there, she suddenly realized that Max wasn't just waiting for someone. He was waiting for a miracle. A moment when Max would finally reunite with his family. Perhaps this wait would never end. But Sarah realized that sometimes what matters isn't the result, but the journey Max had shown her, that sometimes patience and loyalty could become a great hope. And as Sarah drove by every morning, she didn't just leave food for Max. She left a belief in her heart. A belief that even though no one could understand the reason, Max would forever be a part of this town, and that he would never stop waiting, never stop believing. Jake's curiosity was piqued. He couldn't understand why Max had been sitting there for so long, refusing to leave to learn more. He began following Max every day, driving past the gas station when he entered town. Each time he saw Max, the dog was the same, an immobile statue, patiently waiting as though there was something he was waiting for. Jake couldn't take his eyes off the dog's persistence, and he decided that he had to uncover the story behind Max. Jake started approaching the townspeople and asking them about Max. Everyone in the town knew the dog, but no one could explain why Max had been sitting there for 4 long years. Some people thought Max had been lost and couldn't find his owner. Others believed the dog was waiting for someone who had disappeared. But no one knew for sure, and it was this mystery that made Max a strange figure in the town, a puzzle no one could solve. Jake threw himself into finding clues. He visited the diner where Sarah, the only person who had not only fed Max, but also noticed his patience worked. Sarah told Jake that Max was not a stray dog. She'd seen him sitting there every morning, never moving despite the many people who had tried to help or move him. Everyone in town thought Max was waiting for someone, but no one knew who. Sarah didn't understand it either, but she believed that Max was waiting for something important. Jake kept investigating and discovered an unexpected detail. 4 years ago, Max had a family. The story begins with a car accident on a highway near town. The Carter family, a couple, and their son had been in an accident while driving through the area. So Max, their dog, had survived after the crash. Max ran everywhere searching for his family and eventually stopped at this gas station, deciding to wait. The people in town didn't know this, but Max believed that his family would return. What Jake uncovered kept him fixated on Max. The dog wasn't just waiting for his family, he was showing love and loyalty beyond measure, a feeling that transcended everything. Jake realized that Max's story wasn't just about a dog waiting for its owner, but a story of patience, hope, and faith in a miracle. Max's determination inspired Jake, and he knew he had to share this story. He understood that this wasn't just a tale about a dog, but about an unwavering loyalty from a creature who never stopped believing in something bigger than itself. Jake wrote an article about Max, describing the dog's patience and hoping that the article would help Max find his family, or at least help people understand the message about love and loyalty. With every word of his article, Jake was not only telling an emotional story, but also opening a new door for Max. A door where the people who loved this dog could recognize the story as search for answers and bring Max back to the family he had always waited for. Jake, with his investigative journalist, nature couldn't stop after being drawn in by Max's patience. After spending weeks learning about the mysterious dog, he decided to dig deeper into Max's past. He knew that behind this dog's endless patience was a profound story, and he would be the one to uncover it. Jake began by searching for information about Max, asking local people and checking old reports. One day, he visited Martha's diner to speak with Sarah, whom he had met earlier. Sarah told Jake about the years Max had spent at the gas station. She explained that Max used to belong to a family who lived nearby, and for the past 4 years, Max had sat there waiting unchanged. But as Sarah delved deeper into Max's story, she revealed a detail that Jake hadn't heard before. Sarah shared that 4 years ago, Max had a family, the Carter family. They lived in a small house near the highway where Max had lived happily with their son Lucas. A 10-year-old boy, and his parents, Max was not just a regular dog, but the closest friend to Lucas, always following him from morning until night. With the Carter family, Max experienced days filled with warmth and love. But everything changed one day when the Carter family went on a trip. On their way back, a severe car accident occurred. The Carter family was in a crash on a deserted road, their car flipping and crashing into a tree. Max, who had been sitting in the back with Lucas, was thrown from the vehicle. While the rest of the Carter family sustained severe injuries, Max was thrown from the scene and went missing. The Carter family searched for Max for many days but couldn't find their dog. Eventually, they believed that Max hadn't survived and had to accept the painful truth. They moved on with their lives, thinking Max was gone forever. However, what they didn't know was that Max had survived and had wandered searching for his family. Although he had survived the crash, Max never left. The dog simply waited, holding on to a belief that his family would return. Max didn't know that they had thought he was dead, and he kept sitting there waiting. 4 years passed, and Max remained in his spot at the gas station as if everything was just a bad dream, and his family would come back someday. Jake sat in his car, reflecting on the story Sarah had told him. Every detail she revealed made Max's story even deeper, and he couldn't stop thinking about the dog's loyalty and strong belief The images of the Carter family and young Lucas formed in Jake's mind like sad pictures. He knew he had to do something to bring an answer for Max to show the world the unconditional love Max had for his family. Soon after, Jake began reaching out to animal rescue organizations and the Carter family to find leads on their whereabouts. He knew that Max's story wouldn't end there. It was a story about absolute loyalty, a strong reminder of the unconditional love animals have for humans, despite everything that had happened in the past. Each day, Jake felt like he was getting closer to Max and the Carter family. He couldn't help but be moved when he thought about the sight of Max, along with one singular goal for 4 long years to wait for a family that had left and never returned. Jake could hardly believe his eyes when he received a response from Emily, Carter Lucas's mother, after he shared Max's story. After learning that the dog had survived and waited for 4 long years, Emily and Lucas could hardly contain their emotions. It was almost unimaginable that Max, the dog they had loved and thought they had lost, was still alive and waiting for them in a strange place. Lucas, now 14, had a special bond with Max. He recalled the days when he was younger, and Max was always his loyal companion by his side, playing and sharing every moment of joy and sorrow. Every morning when Lucas woke up, Max was the first one to greet him, making those childhood years the happiest of his life. But after the accident, Max had disappeared, and the Carter family had buried the pain of losing their dog for the past 4 years. Now knowing that Max was still alive, Lucas felt as though everything had come full circle, as if time had stopped. This overwhelming and unbelievable feeling wasn't only Lucas's. Emily, a strong yet gentle mother, couldn't hold back her tears. After 4 years of hopelessness, could it be that Max was still alive and waiting for them? A strange sensation overtook Emily, a new hope that was kindled in her heart. But that joy was also accompanied by a sense of fear. Would Max still remember them? Would the dog that had waited for 4 long years accept the Carter family as it once had, with faith and determination? Emily and Lucas decided to go on a journey. They knew nothing was more important than bringing Max back home. They prepared for the long trip to the small town where Max was waiting, but in their hearts, mixed emotions and questions washed over them. Will Max recognize us? Lucas thought, his eyes filled with worry, but then the love for Max made all the worries seem small, and they were ready to embark on this journey even without knowing what awaited them. When they arrived in the small town where Max had waited for 4 years, their emotions surged. Both of them could hardly believe what was waiting. Max, the dog they had once loved, was still there, still patiently sitting next to the gas station, his eyes fixed on the distant road, as if time had stood still for him. Just as Jake had said, Max was still waiting for someone to come back like a ghost from the past. Emily and Lucas stopped in front of the gas station where Max still sat. Max didn't move, not immediately recognizing their presence. The Carter family stood still for a moment, watching Max. Every step they took seemed to slow down, their hearts pounding. Max couldn't know that the people he had waited for all these years were standing right in front of him. Then, after a few seconds of silence, Max slowly lifted his head, his eyes brightened, and that was when everything changed. Lucas couldn't contain his emotions. He ran towards Max, calling the dog's name. Max, Max. Without hesitation, the dog's ears perked up and his tail began to wag gently. Max stood up and walked toward Lucas, trembling, but full of trust. Lucas knelt and embraced Max tightly. That moment touched the hearts of not only Lucas and Emily, but everyone who witnessed it. Max had waited so long, but finally all his efforts, all his moments of patience had been rewarded. Emily and Lucas never imagined they would find Max again, but now standing beside their beloved dog, they knew that love and patience were never in vain. Max had come back home, not just physically, but spiritually, to the place where the Carter family had always waited for him. When Lucas and Emily finally reached the gas station where Max had waited for 4 years, they could hardly believe their eyes. In front of them was a German shepherd, still sitting silently as always, his eyes lighting up when he saw them. Max was still waiting, just as he had for all these years. But this time everything would be different. The entire Carter family stood still, holding their breath, not daring to take another step. Everything seemed to stop except for the sound of the wind and the occasional passing cars on the empty highway. Max. Lucas called, his voice choking with emotion, unable to believe what he was seeing. Max slowly turned his head, and in that moment, the dog's eyes lit up as if he recognized his longtime companion. Max stood up and took slow steps toward Lucas. As the distance closed, the dog leaped into Lucas's arms, tail wagging wildly, his body trembling with joy. Max, Lucas shouted, embracing the dog he thought he had lost forever. It felt like time rewound as if the past years had never happened. Max had returned, and Lucas couldn't contain his emotions. Tears streaming down his face like a river, Emily stood beside him, eyes red, unable to believe that their beloved dog had survived and come back. She stepped forward, knelt and hugged Max and her son. All three of them sat down, tears mingling with overwhelming happiness and emotion. Max was once again a part of their family. But Max's story didn't end there. Although the emotional reunion was heartwarming, returning to life inside the house was not easy for Max. After 4 years of living outdoors in cold winters and hot summers, Max didn't remember the peaceful life inside a home. He no longer felt familiar with the safety and love of a family home. A sense of unfamiliarity lingered as Max refused to sleep inside the room, instead curling up near the door as if waiting for something. Lucas and Emily knew that reunion was not the end of the journey, but only part of the healing process. They didn't rush. They understood that Max needed time to learn how to trust again. Every night, Max stayed awake, staring out the window as though still searching for something. Lucas tried to comfort Max, but the dog only looked at him with eyes full of worry and confusion. Every day, Lucas and Emily did their best to help Max readjust, but it wasn't always easy. Max refused to eat with the family, and whenever anyone came near, he would back away. Cautious Emily gently petted Max's fur, whispering comforting words. "Max, this is our home. We'll never leave you." But the dog still didn't understand, still couldn't forget the lonely days spent outdoors. Gradually, Max began to show small changes. The dog started eating food inside the house, and sometimes when Lucas sat beside him, Max would come close, resting his head on the boy's lap as if seeking comfort. The Carter family was patient, knowing this was a long journey and Max needed time to heal the wounds in his soul. A month passed and Max began wagging his tail whenever Lucas came home. The dog no longer shied away from the light and sounds around him. But there were still nights when Max woke up, stood up and looked toward the window, his eyes filled with fear. Lucas didn't rush. He knew that patience was the most important thing right now. Finally, one night, Max decided to climb into bed with Lucas curling up beside him like the old days. It was a magical moment when Max realized that this was his family and there was nothing to fear anymore. The dog's sleep was peaceful and deep, a sleep full of trust and safety. The Carter family had finally reunited not only physically but emotionally, and they knew that Max's journey of reintegration had just begun, but no matter how difficult it might be, they would always be together. Max's story is a living testament to boundless loyalty and the power of hope. For 4 long years, Max sat patiently at the gas station, never leaving, despite enduring freezing winters and scorching summers. Though people thought the dog had been abandoned, Max never lost his belief that his family would return. Regrets, no giving up. He never refused food or help. But Max's loyalty always placed his family first. He didn't know how long he would wait, but one thing was certain: Max would never give up hope. As Max's story became widely known, the community and the town began to realize the value of loyalty and patience. They not only admired Max, but also learned valuable lessons about perseverance, unconditional love, and responsibility towards pets. Max didn't just change his own life, but sparked a wave of love in the community. The townspeople began to care more for their pets and their animals, learning that loyalty and hope could change lives in miraculous ways. Max taught them that true love always has the power to turn dreams into reality, even the dream of a loyal dog. Max had gone through a challenging journey for 4 long years, living alone outdoors, waiting for his family to return. When the Carter family finally found Max, the dog was no longer a wild animal, but still carried the scars of the past. The Carter family, especially Lucas and Emily, were overjoyed to see Max gradually adapt to his new life. In the beginning, Max struggled to adjust to life inside the house. The dog had to relearn how to trust humans and feel the safety that his family provided. The first few nights, Max remained anxious, sometimes getting up and looking out the window as though waiting for someone to return. But gradually, the patience and love from the Carter family helped Max understand that this was the safe place he had been searching for over the past 4 years. The Carter family witnessed Max's transformation day by day. The dog no longer cowered or feared. Instead, he showed warm and friendly gestures. Max began to realize that he had returned to the family where love and care awaited him. The days of loneliness and loss were replaced with sweet moments where Max no longer had to worry about the future. Max's story is not just about a dog and a family. It's a powerful message about hope and loyalty. Max waited for his family for 4 long years, and his waiting was finally rewarded. This story shows us that no matter how tough the road may be, patience and hope will always bring good results. Thank you for following Max's touching story. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so you won't miss out on more heartwarming stories.